Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton. I'm your host, Ryan T. Husk. Today, we are covering episode 10 of Deep Space Nine called The Nagus, directed by David Livingston. Got a lot to discuss, but first, Mr. Aron Eisenberg has something.
Oh, yes. Very excited to share this information. We want to give a big shout out, and we're going to do this a lot, to our artist that we commissioned to do the artwork that you see behind Ryan and myself for our show, The Seventh Rule. His name is JJ Lendl. That's JJLENDL. And he has a website that you must check out, especially if you're a sci-fi fantasy fan. He's got such amazing artwork on his website. It's www.jjlendl.com. And one of my favorite pieces of Star Trek he has, and I'm not sure if it's on the website, he has this little green men poster that I just think is awesome. And to be honest, that's what I saw that inspired me to reach out to him and ask if he would be willing to work with us and do the artwork for our show. So he's our first artist that we get to give a great shout out to. And his name is JJ Lendl. His website is www.jjlendl.com.
Definitely go check out that website. We've got a couple small examples behind us. We're going to have a lot more examples in the coming weeks. We're also posting it a ton on our web pages, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Yes, today I am wearing a transparent shirt, as Aron pointed out. It's actually a green shirt. I think you've all seen it before, the I'm with Illogical green shirt. But
that arrow actually just point straight up to your face. That would be fun. No one does it that way. Instead of right or left, it's I'm with Illogical, all alone.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Anyway, so
not that funny apparently, but nice.
It was very funny. Here's our great art. This is Aron's head. We've got a lot more coming.
Cirroc's head
behind him.
Yep. We also have one with all of us on there. I don't know. Ryan can maybe pull it up on behind his, except you probably won't see
it won't fit
Ryan's face on there. And we also have one that's like the one behind me, but with Ryan, who looks like a bad, and he looks great. He looks really
bad
good.
Ant.
Yeah.
A bad ant.
Cirroc Jake looks pretty good too. I think he's not actually doing that, but it looks fantastic. And we're going to have some pieces and stuff available at Star Trek Las Vegas. So anyway.
Oh yeah. By the way, we have a brand new store, online shop up called, it's obviously on the Seventh Rule. It's on teespring.com. You can check that out on our social media pages, or you can just go to teespring.com, type in The Seventh Rule. And we've already made quite a few sales because the prices are very low. And because
What? Price is low?
What?
Sorry about that. I forgot I'm dealing with Ferengi here.
What?
We've got great deals though. If you get a shirt or item, a sock, and wear it to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, Aron's got a special gift for you.
Yes, I will sign. I think we might have postcards available, or I will sign the shirt or something, an item of yours. I will sign that for no cost. That's so hard for a Ferengi to say. No cost. It's not part of our vernacular. I'm working on it. I am in Starfleet, so it should be easier. Thankfully, I had a wonderful person who taught me how to read, and I have a cue card here somewhere that says no cost. So yeah, be more than happy if we see you wearing it at our shirt or one of the items from our Teespring store for the Seventh Rule. We will sign something for you. Absolutely.
Aron, that's the perfect segue for today's episode. So
the Nagus.
That's right. Before we jump into it, though, that's teespring.com. Check out the Seventh Rule. Get some stuff. We got fugly muglies. We got women's, what are those called? Slouchy shirts.
Slouchy shirts.
Men's hoodies. We got lots of stuff. You're going to get free autographs if you buy them and wear them or bring them to Star Trek Las Vegas. But I'm sorry. Let's please get into The Nagus, directed by David Livingston, episode 10. And go.
Oh, Wow, just go.
And go. That's your.
Where do we
that's your
start? Well, we could start with the history of the word the Nagus, which is actually supposed to be spelled Negus, and I was reading up on this. Ira came up with that. Where did he come up with that? He looked through the thesaurus for a good expression for leader and found Nagus, Negus. I may be mispronouncing that. An Indian word, which he changed to Nagus, thus Grand Nagus Zek. You know, it's funny watching this episode. I felt this was about family for the most part. Although, I get what I want, which is seeing Sisko and the young Sisko together, as my co-star Cirroc Lofton on screen here, who played Jake, together as parent and son again. And I really love these scenes a lot. It's really wonderful to see this, and you see what happens to fathers as their sons get older, or daughters, and they start drifting away from them more towards their friend. And you see what a good father he is, letting that happen, you know, and being sad, and at the same time recognizing that that's an important part of a son or daughter's growth, and letting them have his friendships even at the sake of spending time with Sisko. It's interesting to me how when later in the scene when Jake and Nog kind of aren't friends at this moment, mostly because Nog is very upset and feels like him and humans can't get together. Sisko doesn't work to help Jake mend that friendship, which I thought was interesting. He goes, okay, well, that's what happened. So anyway, you know, he goes, Ferengi and humans, we don't get along. We don't have common bonds. We've never been able to find common ground. So it's not going to happen. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. And it's probably a better take that he said that, because then it put it on Jake to find how we find a common ground. And basically Jake and Nog to find a common ground, because in what you hear from Nog is his dad pretty much says the same thing. So while the parents can't seem to find common ground, the youth will, which changes the future. And as we know where the show ends up, this is instrumental in saving the universe, and instrumental at bringing in, you know, Ferengi into the Federation. I don't think we ever in our show see that happen, but the fact that Nog becomes the first Ferengi in Starfleet is the beginning of finding common ground amongst races that have very, very different values. And that's really, you know, I mean, what I hear all the time, what Star Trek is all about, you know, finding common ground amongst people that can't seem to see it at the beginning. And yeah, and how do we get there? And this might be an underlying tone. We got there through education. We got there through, you know, teaching and reaching out, you know, with Jake, recognizing what really is happening with Nog and figuring out how to help him get through that. And Nog's desire to want more. And he's not thinking of Starfleet at this moment, but he doesn't want to feel stupid. He doesn't want to go to a class and he's enjoying it. He's participating and not be able to do work, and that there's an underlying cause to his bad behavior. And it's Jake's heart that reaches out and bridges that.
And that's where your segue came from when you mentioned saving the world and you know, teaching English and whatever it was back then. This episode is where we see that first nugget of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember where that first episode was, but this is the one. This is the one episode. It had a lot of things that are important to this show. Personally, it had the scene that I use as my background oftentimes. I don't know if you guys remember. Let me bring
our spot on the promenade.
Our spot.
Our legs dangle at different lengths, but our faces are the same.
Well, I can't find it right now for whatever reason, but yes, it had that scene with Jake and Nog sitting. Here it is. That we always use. This
from that
iconic
episode.
picture is from this episode, and this is where they become friends, you know, and they like have all this strife between them, and you know the teachers are saying it's a problem, and the dad's saying it's kind of a problem, but they're like, you know what, I still want to be your friend, and you still want to be my friend. And so it had this iconic moment. It also had the iconic moment that you're alluding to, which is Cirroc's character Jake is, you know, late for work or late for home or whatever it is.
Dinner, right?
I guess it's not work, but he's late to get home. He's late for dinner. He comes home after midnight, and we find out why he's doing that. And it's because he's teaching Nog how to read. And I want to hear all about this from Cirroc. Like if you remember reading that script, or if you remember that scene, or what that was all about.
No, I wanted to, well, first of all, this is the beginning for me of our relationship. So I feel like I remember this time more as far as Aaron and I relationship starting to begin and blossom.
Awesome.
Yeah. One of the things that I take away is the fact that as we are able to kind of forge a friendship from, you know, the first of our races, our first two of our ambassadors of our race to forge a friendship, which I think is interesting because it reminds me of being a parent, and it reminds me of conversations that I have with my daughter. And in those conversations, she teaches me in such a simple type of child way how to see things differently, and how to approach things with a different kind of, you know, sensibility. And I feel like that is what Jake does with Sisko. You know, not accepting the fact that we're not supposed to like each other. I think throughout time, it is the youth and the young people that kind of forge the new way forward for us, and begin to define things that they will and will not accept or tolerate, and that's how we advance. We get, you know, civil rights and gay rights because people don't accept the norm.
Right. Yep.
Of how it's supposed to be. And I thought this is a good example of, you know, the two of us really showing that youthful idea of the saying, hey, it could work. We can find something that we can get along with. So I enjoyed that whole concept in general. And I think you alluded to it before, Aaron, when you Jake kind of questions Sisko's decision making, or maybe add something to the mix where he ponders or changes his mind, and I think we got a good example of that where Avery's character Sisko is willing to be accepting of things that he normally would just draw a line in the sand on. I think that's one of the things that begins to show a friendship and a long-term getting to know each other's differences and finding the common ground, as you said earlier, that helps save the world.
Aaron, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, you know, no, because he was taking off of the things that I said. Yeah,
Cirroc, we were just laughing for a second there because your internet got a little spotty at the end there, so that was. But we definitely got the gist of what you were saying. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Aaron.
You know, you see this friendship blossom, and one of the things I was thinking about what could have been different or interesting about this episode, but it's not about Jake and Nog. We're pretty much the B story, and it's really about Quark and again, I thought Armin's performance was nailed it. I thought he was fantastic, and you do see a change in Rom for the first time. Now we haven't seen Rom either. Right. Since the school scene, and he's a completely different Ferengian. I wish we had Max on the show today, but I reached out to him and he says after Vegas, so we'll have him back on the show after Vegas sometime. But I want to know,
Aaron, do you think that? Sorry, but do you think that that change in Max's character happened because the writers adjusted to Max a little bit yet? Or do you think that the writers just kind of adjusted, you know, on the fly? Or do you think that Max read it, just decided as an actor to read it a little bit different?
Yeah, that's why I want to have Max. I want to ask him because I don't know, because we haven't seen Rom. Well, we haven't really seen him. Like, he hasn't had any, I think we've seen him maybe in the background, maybe. I'm trying to remember if we've had.
He's in a couple things here and there, but not much.
Yeah, but nothing to give us an impression of the type of Ferengi he is. So my question would be, how much do the writers know of him in order to make a change, which I don't think they have yet. So my first thought is to say that they made a change by seeing how Quark is developed, that they don't want a Ferengi that's like Quark. You know, a typical, as Rom played at the beginning, they would be almost similar. And I think they wanted more of a brother is less than the other brother, or a more adversarial, and then they can turn it around. And then he says, brother, I'm so proud of you for almost killing me and not putting me above prophet. And you see a little bit more of the Ferengi culture. And you also see how poop rolls downhill in the Ferengi household. You know, Quark yells at Rom to clean all the things. Rom gets upset, and then he yells at Nog. And you can see how the communication kind of somewhat continues. You know, Rom is kind of, okay, brother. And then to me, he's like, you know, he's a lot different. And then you see me then even continue that to Jake to some degree when he goes, what's wrong? And he goes, yeah, we're not supposed to be friends. Get away from me. And you see this kind of angry.
Good performance, Aaron.
Huh?
Good performance there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. And so what I was going to say would be really kind of neat is if you really saw a comparison between how Sisko fathers his son Jake and how Nog really is a kid in the Ferengi culture. You only see a glimpse of it because it's not about that, unfortunately. And nor should it really be about that in this episode. And Nog is just a recurring guest star. But it would have been really neat to see how would Nog have really responded to the Grand Nagus. In theory, he should have been like, this is like, you know, a god coming over to the bar. You know, this is the Grand Nagus, and being raised in that Ferengi family, there probably should have been a little bit more to do with Nog and his father within that whole paradigm. And you do see a piece of it with Nog sitting on the ground, waiting hand on foot, you know, for Zek to do something, but he does it begrudgingly, which is interesting because I have a feeling most Ferengi probably wouldn't react that way. And I put that on me going, maybe I shouldn't have played it that way. Maybe I should have played it like, oh my God, the Nagus is here, you know, but instead I played it, I'd rather be elsewhere because the script told me that, right? I got to go. I want to go study, you know, which is different for a Ferengi. And they're like, what? Study? Rom, you're not studying anymore. Go to your room. Go play a game. You can't study, which is really funny. And Nog's all, so you really see that Nog wants to learn. And his own family is preventing him from learning. But anyway, I'm spending way too much time, I think, on the B story when maybe we should talk about the A story.
Not at all. I think that to me, that was the most interesting part, was watching Jake and Nog interact and watching Jake and Sisko, Ben Sisko, interact, because those are those subplots, those B stories sometimes are the ones that are tough to remember which episode they were on. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can't really remember, you remember this B plot, but you can't remember which episode that B plot was necessarily on. And I think that for us as a show, to me, this was the juiciest episode. It had all the good, it had the first real good interaction between Jake and Nog. It had maybe the best interaction between Jake and his dad, you know, and the Ferengi story, it was the first cool Ferengi story too, which is kind of like our spirit animal on this show, for lack of a better term.
And I love, you see what a great father Sisko is because of the young man he's raised, you know, and at the end when they hug and he's all, I'm so proud of you, because he suspected, what are you doing? You're hanging around with that Huckleberry Finn. Ooh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you. I'm so mad. And he's mad. he's mad at Jake, but he can't pinpoint why he's really mad. And you see, Jake, I can't tell you, Dad. You got to trust me, you know, and you see the honesty in Jake, and he's a good kid. And if I'm thinking of myself as a dad, I'm like, I can't be mad, but I'm mad. Why am I mad? And then he goes, I'm going to go. And he does what parents typically do, right? They spy on their kid, which is really bad, right? And then what does he do? He finds the kid teaching a kid from the race that his dad said we can never get along with. Which then, who do we learn the most from, as Cirroc said, which is our children. And Jake wouldn't have been that way if it wasn't for the wonderful father that Sisko is. You know what I mean? It's just, it all works together, and it's a beautiful thing that they've chosen to tell this story. And I love that they do. So,
Cirroc, what do you remember about those scenes, specifically with Avery?
Well, there's some hard to get an exact memory of the interactions that we had and the conversations off screen, but you know, I always remember Avery handling things with such a tenacity and being so in depth for understanding the meaning behind things. And the meaning, you know, for this episode is so poignant, and they actually carry on from the last episode, which is one of the few things I picked up on in this episode, because the last episode they mentioned, you know, I'm getting all my dating advice from you.
That's right.
And so now they pick up from that to like, you gotta get away from this kid. He's giving you dating advice and, you know, this other stuff. I don't want you around him. But, you know, so often parents also, you know, put restrictions on who their kids can hang out with or who they should be friends with. And that's a normal parental kind of, you know, protect thing. You know, I don't want you to be influenced in a negative way by so-and-so. So you put restrictions.
Yeah.
But if those restrictions are not based something that you can actually put your finger on and say, this is the reason, because this is, you know, this is going to lead to a bad thing, which I feel like Sisko was really articulate why he didn't want us to hang out, except for the fact
he never
that
says
you know,
anything.
we just don't know. Yeah, he didn't say because you're going to turn out like this, this, and this, or you're going to lead into whatever the path is of, you know, he'll lead you to be a drug addict or this or that. For a real specific reason. It was just like, I don't really, you know, this is the tradition. I don't like them. And, you know, there was no real general reason. So I thought that was really great. I thought they played it well. We didn't talk much about the Ferengi storyline, but what I did pick up on the Ferengi was that there's a common perception that Ferengi are all like uniformly alike, like they're all one way. And that's what happens with stereotypes. You know, people in a stereotype say, all these people are like this. And I that one of the things I get from variety, I get a sense of individuality and identity in between the Ferengi, amongst the Ferengi, just like we have amongst, you know, any other nationality or race.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think starts to differentiate from me is, okay, there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot more layer. There's more content involved in the relationships in between Ferengis, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how they identify. And so I think that was one of the great things that I saw about your character, which is, you know, you wanted to be not the stereotypical or prototype Ferengi.
Right.
And you didn't want to fall in line with, hey, we know I'm not, you don't have to read, you don't need to know about school, that's not important. You know, you just need to know this and this. And that's where I feel, all right.
Cirroc, 1 second, I'm going to cut you off. I got to cut you off real quick because we got to go to break. But I want to hear all about this stereotype stuff, because this is a major theme that I noticed throughout all of Star Trek, especially in Deep Space Nine, and very much so in this episode. So we definitely want to cover that. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton. I'm Ryan T. Husk, and today we are covering episode 10 of Deep Space Nine called The Nagus, directed by David Livingston. We also have Wallace Shawn starring in this episode, which is pretty awesome. I guess we can talk about that a little later. That was his first appearance. But first, we want to get back into the meat of this conversation, and that's stereotypes. And that's, you know, it's not hard to see the metaphors that they have on this show, which is things like, but all Ferengi are fill in the blank, or all Klingon are fill in the blank. And that's what Star Trek does so well, I think, is they keep showing us the exception to that rule. Like, all Klingons are, you know, are jolly and like to drink and party, except Worf. Maybe they're not all like that. You know, all Ferengi just want profit. Well, apparently, except for Nog, not all of them are like that, you know. So that being said, Cirroc, we interrupted you. Please continue.
No, just to add to what you said, I like the fact that, you know, they challenge the stereotypes on this show, and they do their best to, you know, create individual identity, which is one of the things that we are all defined by, you know, our own merit of our own character and what we've done and what we say. And it's hard when you get lumped into a group and you are automatically discredited, discounted, or your expectations are met. And I think those are the things that limit when you don't get the full opportunity to express yourself or who you are as a person. And, by not having the best able to be measured or judged for your individual actions. So one of the things that I think that was done well in this episode was Nog's real desire to be himself and to not follow the norms and not follow the path that's laid out for him or his race or his his whole agenda is already written in stone. He has a desire to do something original or for himself or think for himself, which I think is important in the show.
One of the things that's interesting about the situation with Nog reading and wanting to read and wanting to study, and then basically the thing that really makes that possible was the influence of another culture. Had Nog just been on Ferenginar, he probably never would have even considered, you know, going to a class with other humans, other Bajoran.
Fire! What a great point. You're on fire. Keep it going.
Fire! I tell you, it's this image behind me. I'm channeling Jake's.
You're dead on.
But it's so interesting if you look at today, where there's so much fear about others. You know, this is my spot. This is my place. And truthfully, what makes us greater and better is the influence of other cultures and other people, and allowing that to let us grow and see things that maybe we wouldn't have seen before. And this is a perfect example of that. And we ultimately know where that leads, which is really saving the universe. Now that's a very, you know, mythical, dramatic interpretation of a small ripple in the pond, if you will. But it's also a true representation, because things, we never know where they might lead. And when we let our fear that Sisko has control that, imagine if Sisko won this fight with you, and then I never showed up on the show again. They might have had a different hero or a different ripple in the pond. But in theory, then Nog never would have been there to be instrumental in saving the universe, right? So that influence is important. And because youth tends to be more open to that, right? And Jake and Nog are breaking those barriers, we see those changes. Because we don't really know at this point where Nog is going to go. At the moment, he's just wants to be a part of this. You're his best friend, because if you look at all those other kids in the classroom, I mean, that girl looked like she was 5. So I'm not sure how we're going to hang out with her. You know, I'm not even sure why she's in our class right now. But we're best friends, and best friends inspire each other. They support each other. When they realize something's wrong, they put a hand down and go, well, how can I help you? Which is exactly what you did. And even when they're being mean, I don't want to be friends with you. You're human. I'm Ferengi. We don't do that. And Nog leaves. He gives up. But Jake doesn't give up. And that is what's so important. That's the message that I think I take away from that, is we can't give up when we're faced with this, you know, isolationism, if you will. It's so important. And you see that in the show. And that's to me, the underlying subtext that isn't really brought up in the episode per se. And I'll finish with this. And on a flip side of that, you truly see the Ferengi culture. You almost see in a very narcissistic way, as I say this, Nog is literally at a crossroads. Is he going to be one of the Ferengi at a table in 20 years with the next Grand Nagus and sending a Ferengi weapon to kill somebody? Or is he going to be a smart Ferengi and know, you know, power is won in the shadows. It's won little by little. It's not grabbed. It's accumulated, as Zek says to his son, right? It's accumulated little by little when no one's watching. Is Nog going to be that? Or is he going to be, I'm going to study, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and then I'm going to look at the world a little bit differently. And what is that going to make me? That's where Nog's at right now. Which way do I go? And he listens to his good friend. You know, he follows his friend. Even when school was at an end, we're still going to be friends. That's a beautiful moment in of itself. Even when maybe we won't be able to fix this, we can still be friends and still walk together forward. And it's great. It's
you know, real quick, Aaron, you also mentioned that fight. And the reason I remember you mentioning that is because I do remember that's the word that Captain or Commander Sisko at the time said. And there was a good line in there when I believe he was talking with O'Brien, and he said, "Oh, I can't make my son choose between Nog and me." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, because I don't think I'd win." That's pretty good. And you know, you guys are both dads, and you guys probably have felt that before. Where
Absolutely.
You're like, I don't want to make my kid pick between me and their friend because I'm not sure that they would pick me. You know, Cirroc, do you ever run into those kind of things?
Well, my daughter's 7 now, so there's a long way for me to go. But she did say to me, which presented a bit of a similar, dilemma that Sisko's faced with, is, she asked me why me and her mom weren't together. She's getting to the age now where she's becoming aware of things like that, and so she asked me why me and her mom are not together. And that's a complicated answer for an adult in telling a child, but when as I was trying to make my way through it and explain, that we argue a lot and we don't get along very well. One of her suggestions to me was, well, in school, if we don't get along very well, we go outside and hug, or something.
It's a good solution.
The teacher makes us hug, and then we go play. And so
basically, all you had to do was just hug and go play.
Exactly. And so when she says it to me in such a simple way, and there's a truth to what she's saying. That's her truth, and it puts me in a position where I don't want to upset her truth by introducing my truth, which is corrupted by this, what we talk about, the long history of things, right? But the naivety of the freshness of youth, you don't have that program inside your head where you've run up against different roadblocks and you felt discouraged or things weren't working. Because you're young, everything is kind of an open door for possibility. And so it's hard for me to kind of make the explanation to why I'm not with her mom anymore. you know, without looking like a jerk myself, you know.
Well, as another man who also was no longer with my first wife while I was raising my boys, time helps those conversations, and experience helps the understanding of how it's not as simple as hugging and going out and playing, you know. And as we see in this show with relationships, you know, even with Quark and Rom, it's not so simple as Rom's an idiot, and as we find out with years to go, it's not so simple as Sisko says to O'Brien, your daughter's, I think he even said 7. Did he say 7? He said when O'Brien says something and he goes, I'll lose that fight. Mine's a little bit older, you know,
Right.
and we change, right? As we get older, things, as we understand. And at the same time, we as parents, as you're articulating, learn from the simplicity of a child's viewpoint. And you go, why can't I do that? Why can't I make it that simple? And in many instances, we can. And we forget that we can. And I think those moments help us remember that maybe there's more places in my relationships in the world where I can keep it that simple, you know? And what a beautiful thing, you know, you got a very bright, intelligent daughter, man. And I'm sure she's turning into a wonderful woman, you know? And my boys are 19 and 22 now. So to take on what Ryan said, absolutely. At some point you go, I hope I taught them well. They have to make these decisions and learn from them. And I think Sisko says something like that in this episode as well. And
a lot of wisdom being dropped in this episode.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of little nuggets in there. Yeah.
And what's probably the best out of all this of what we're discussing is how it demonstrates what a strong parental figure Sisko is, and what a strong relationship he has with his son. And that, as we well know, is an important part of Deep Space Nine and this show to demonstrate that. And they're doing a very good job so far. You know, even if it took, what was it, 6 episodes to come back to Sisko and Sisko, I've been waiting, and it's still one of my favorite parts of the show.
You know, I want to hear obviously what Cirroc has to say about that, because that's a really important aspect of the show. But before we go fully into that, I just want to finish touching on what you were saying earlier, Aaron, and get Cirroc's thoughts on it, which was exposing ourselves to different cultures, and, for lack of a better word or term, getting out of our echo chambers. You know, you don't want an echo chamber where everybody thinks the same, everybody does the same, everybody's the same, whatever. You know, you learn a lot from an exchange of ideas, from people on the other side of the discussion, from people from different races, from people, you know, across the pond or whatever. And I've heard Cirroc mention these kind of things, obviously, many times before, but this episode really, again, shows this theme that Star Trek is always showing, which is, you know, get out of that echo chamber, meet new alien races if we can. If we can't, then just people is fine. But what do you think of all that, Cirroc? Me too.
Well, I hope my connection is strong, because I'm getting a little blitz, but
we got you now. Yeah.
You know, what do I think about it? I think it's important. One of the things that you know, is part of the greatness of America is the fact that it's made up of so many different nationalities. There is no homogeny here. You know, it's not just the one thing that you look at as you find in other countries. And the benefit of that for us as Americans is that everybody is bringing these traditions, their culture, their knowledge, and their creativity, their ideas, and it gets to bounce off so many different directions. And because it bounces off and because it's mixed together, we're able to create new things and be so innovative and our limits. And I think if you don't have that perspective from many different angles, then you don't have the advantage of seeing so many different sides.
Right. Right. Yeah.
We lost a little bit of you there, Cirroc, but we definitely got the gist of it. And homogeny was the word I gathered out of that, which was a really good point. Is you do want that mix, and the more things that you are exposed to, the more you're going to learn. You're going to learn from other people's knowledge. You're going to learn from people doing and saying things you've never heard before in a way you've never heard before, and you'll even learn things that you don't like, which you'll learn contrast. You'll see things that other people bring to the table that you don't like, which allows you to realize what you do like. And and you know, it's just an exchange of ideas and really exposing ourselves to different things. I think you're right, is what makes America so fantastic. Also, I don't even think we have a national language, which is also a really interesting thing to think about. America does not have an official national language. And
it's American.
That was done deliberately. You know, that's an important thing to note. But anyway, moving on to the father-son relationship that is also all over the place in Deep Space Nine between Rom and Nog. And
he's a bit abusive.
Yeah, but it's a contrast of styles, you know.
Very contrasting.
Now, later on in the series, though, Rom and Nog are much, much better. They both kind of grow as Ferengi, as people.
And one of the things, just to comment on that, is I wonder at this point if the writers have an idea of where they may want to go, or if they're just winging it right now. Like their inspiration to have Jake teach Nog to read. Is the writer's idea of that because they want to grow the character of Nog, or are they trying to build the relationship with Jake and Sisko, and Jake getting older and use Nog as the catalyst for that? And then that's what I would love to have a writer on the show and ask him at this time in the show. Did you have an idea? Did you go, hey, let's make Nog a little bit different. Let's make him, being influenced by different cultures, Bajorans, humans, all those that are now going to be part of this station. We were on the station during the occupation of with the Cardassians, right? And how did that influence Nog, as well as Quark and what have you. But I'm kind of trailing off. I'm curious to see what the writers were thinking at this moment. Because one of the questions I would get at the few cons I went to was, where do you want Nog to go? And this was before I went to Starfleet. And I said, I think it would be really cool if Nog went to Starfleet and became a diplomat and used his skills as a Ferengi, not for profit, but to help connect people, help to solve problems. I thought I feel if he was a captain, he'd probably be one of the most diplomatic captains, because he would know how to get both sides, to come to the middle. But anyway, fortunately, we haven't seen that yet. Maybe someday.
That's a really good point. It would be good to know, because I see three possible reasons for that. One is the three potential ideas are that, number one, they wanted to grow Nog's character, and they already had his arc mapped out, which I think is probably the least likely.
I agree. I do too.
Because I don't think they were thinking in full, 7-year arcs yet. I think it's, the other option is that they wanted to show just the relationship between the two of you. But also the third one, which is also just as likely and probably happened in conjunction with the second one, is that they wanted to show growth in Cirroc's character. They wanted to show him doing the right thing, which is, look, he still wants this guy as his friend. He doesn't think his friend is a bad influence. He thinks he's a good influence on his friend, and vice versa. And that he's willing to face the wrath of his father to do what he thinks is the right thing, or what he in his heart wants to do, which is he wants to be his friend. He wants to help his friend. He wants to improve the quality of life of his friend, And I think that's what they were looking at. And then the rest just kind of went in happenstance, where they're just kind of like, this is really there's some good stuff to use here, you know?
Yeah, they looked at me and go, there's a little Marlon Brando in that Ferengi makeup.
I'm not
We need
sure
to
they
give
thought
him
that.
more work. Well, it is interesting to think to see where the writers' heads were at this moment. I do know that when I've been online or I've chatted with Robert Wolf, for example, Robert Hewitt Wolf, one of the writers on our show, he said, we kept giving you more work because you kept demonstrating you could handle it. We'd give you something, you'd run with it. We gave you something again, and you ran with it again. We just go, let's just keep writing for this guy. So I
in
don't
other words, you earned it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very interesting how Nog was very parallel with my own life. You know, Nog really earned everything he gets. He worked hard. You know, he impressed. He changed people's minds by his tenacity, by his passion and his ambition. And one thing that isn't usually synonymous with a Ferengi, his integrity. And the interesting thing is about that is for a Ferengi to demonstrate integrity when you see all these other Ferengi in this episode where no one really is demonstrating any integrity. It's all for profit, but it's in there. It's almost like a gem, you know, hidden deep inside a Ferengi, but it's still there. And now if we look at the end of season 7, with Rom as the Grand Nagus, the whole race of Ferengi is now moving forward in a very progressive mindset. Will that hidden gem start to emerge more in other ways for other Ferengi? Because Nog demonstrated that quality is in there. You know,
courage. I would even call it as a courage. It's the courage to say, you know, to defy your parents. It's courage to defy the status quo. It takes courage to sneak around and try to learn how to read. And you know, that it actually reminds me of you know, slavery, and in the days of slavery, when slaves weren't, you know, allowed to read, and reading itself was something that was taboo, and you had to sneak around, and if you were caught with a book, you know, you could be punished for it. And it felt to me like, you know, that kind of courage that it takes to say, you know, I want to do this for myself, even though I'm not allowed to, or I'm not supposed to, or I'll get in trouble for it. That takes courage. And I think that kind of courage is what helped propel Ferengi as a whole, as an entire race of people, to kind of to be more than what they already were, to
and
be
we
bigger
see that
than what
with
they
Rom.
already were.
We'll
see that with
Rom as well.
And we'll see that with Nog, especially you. I think your character embodies like the real arc of the Ferengi, you know, starting out like, yeah, get away from me, you know.
I know who you are, human.
I know who you are. Get away from me. I don't hang out with you people, you know, to being a captain, you know, for the Federation. So, you know, that's the arc. That's the kind of maturity and growth, and that it radiates throughout the Ferengi as far as, you know, the impact that it has.
And who made that possible? Jake. Friendship, you know, made that possible.
Yeah, reaching out, listening to somebody, taking the time to hear their concerns, and being concerned about it, and caring, compassion. Empathy. And that's what we're missing a lot of today in this world. You know, people are so quick to say what they don't like. They're so quick to put people in boxes, and they are repulsed by the things that they don't like, as opposed to taking the time to understand why something is the way it is, or what can I do to understand somebody better, so that my own perspective is broadened, so I understand people better, and I have a better you know, relationship with the people that I'm around me. You know, as opposed to isolated, and I don't want anything to do with anybody who's not exactly like me.
Right. Yep. So much.
Loving this stuff. You guys are killing it today.
Yeah. So much wonderful subtext.
Show.
Yeah. What's that, Ryan?
I said, usually I have to carry the show, but you guys.
Oh, yeah. Like last week. like last week, Aaron, I hope you got something to say about moving along home because I got nothing.
Yeah, that's what I said. Last week I was like, I hope you got a lot to say because this episode didn't do much for me, but you guys carried it last week too, actually. Yeah.
We all. It's really enjoyable talking about it. I mean, I'm really enjoying the thoughtfulness of both of you and the things that we're all bringing up. And it reminds me, I mean, every time we do an episode, it reminds me why people really do love this episode. And maybe there's a lot of people that often can't articulate it because the subtext of these connections that we're discussing in this episode specifically, and mostly we've been talking about the B story, but the subtext of all of that is what I believe people resonate with people even when they can't necessarily articulate, oh, but this, the whole thing with Jake and Nog really stepping away and Jake stepping away from his father, but having the empathy for somebody from another world, another race, and they've never been able to find a common ground. That stuff teaches me how to bring that into my life, into my world. And I think it's really wonderful for all of us to talk about that. It's neat to recognize that.
And to me, it stands in a larger context for what you experience when you go to the cons. And so far, a lot of the guests that we've had talk about feeling alone or feeling like they're the only ones like they are, almost like an outcast feeling. And when they go to the cons, they, go from being just a solo person to now having groups of friends that they relate to and can talk to and feel part of a community with.
Yep.
And that's the outreach that it takes. It takes that kind of outreach for people to feel accepted or for people to build the bridges of relationship building,
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, it all comes to us to what we keep talking about as we meet the people coming on our show and we're chatting with them. It's all being connected. It's all one family. It's being connected. Jake and Nog, family. It's the beginnings of a very, very strong relationship that would be wonderful to see in the 8th season if things went a little bit more positively for Nog. But
and one of the things that I find as an irony too is Nog, who didn't want anything to do with humans, right? Later on in the show, when he, the episode where you lose your leg, ends up becoming such an inspiration for humans here on the, who are watching the show.
Oh, right. Full
so
circle, man. Full circle.
It comes back around full circle again, which is awesome.
And how I got an upper fist on you, I'll never know. You must have been stuck in that chair. That's the only way that would happen. I know. Well,
friends, we got to go in just a couple seconds here.
We didn't even talk about the A story, Ryan. We kind of failed.
Sorry, we're out of time. This was way too juicy. Every one of these themes we covered, I feel like we could have done an entire show on. It's just a shame that we only had like a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to cover each of them. But before we go, we've got a few seconds left. I do want to mention, speaking of guests, that next week we've got Miss Hannah Hate joining us.
Oh, Hannah. All right.
I should have mentioned sooner when we were talking about O'Brien, talking about his kid. Well, that kid is coming on next week, so stay tuned for that. We do have to go. Thank you so much, Mr. Aron Eisenberg. Thank you so much, Mr. Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk. As always, remember the 7th rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th rule, Free for All. We are joined by Carly, Sierra, Mickey, Heather. Cirroc and Aaron are your stars as always. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today our question du jour is, what is your favorite kind of cheese? Because we're celebrating Bastille Day. This is Bastille Week, Wine and Cheese Day. What's your favorite kind of cheese, Heather?
Oh, you know what? I'm very traditional. I just go with the cheddar.
Is that traditional? Whose tradition is that?
That's on everything, like everything comes with cheddar. So
everything is better with cheddar, I think. That's what they say. I'm better with cheddar.
I don't like fancy cheese. I don't know, but I do. You know what? I changed my answer. I like goat cheese.
Ooh.
Okay. Moving up in the world.
Wow. But why did you change your answer? I'm fine with cheddar.
I prefer goat cheese if it's like it's situational. So
I thought it was.
Really
That's what I was gonna say.
The smooth goat cheese, especially on like a little cracker or like a little baguette type thing, you know, and top
but not
it
on
with
turkey.
On turkey?
On
I've
turkey
never had it on turkey, but you put a little like what's that stuff called? Like the it's like the tomato. It's not salsa,
Bruschetta.
but it's like something similar.
Bruschetta.
No, not bruschetta. It's it's but that's mozzarella. It's mozzarella and tomato.
Oh, you're talking about a caprese salad.
Yeah.
With basil, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. You put that on top of goat cheese on a little like hard cracker bread, and it's the best.
Is it hard cracker or bread? Which one? I mean,
it's the bread that's the little. It's not a cracker, but it's the little wafers of hard bread.
I know what you're talking about. They're like crispy.
I'm with you.
Yeah, they're crispy.
I'm hungry right now. That sounds good.
What about you, Mickey? What's your favorite kind of cheese?
Talk to us, Mickey.
You know exactly what you're gonna say.
Brie.
Brie.
Yeah, there's not a brie I will turn down. Not a brie.
Are there multiple bries? 2 turn down?
There's, I don't want to say thicker ones, but sharper ones, maybe. If cheddar could be sharp, I bet brie can be too.
I guess so. I don't know. I'm not a cheese connoisseur, but I've never turned down a brie.
Yeah, Brie Bites from Trader Joe's.
She did bite, but I still didn't turn. I gotta make this entertaining somehow. This whole cheese question.
Well,
Brian left. He was very upset about.
Hopefully nobody's lactose intolerant, and this is a very insensitive question.
I was just trying to see if I could find a French shirt to get.
Or vegan.
Okay, go get festive. Carly.
What?
What's your favorite cheese?
Favorite cheese.
I don't know like if there's like a brand or whatever, but there was an interesting kind of cheddar that was like a horseradish cheddar that I tried, and that was actually really freaking good.
Horseradish cheddar.
Yeah.
Dean.
All right. It's the Boar's Head brand or whatever, but it was really delicious.
All right.
I like dill, like a caraway cheese.
Oh wow, we're getting crazy. Dill. When people mention dill, they're really crazy.
Or baby Swiss.
Yeah, baby Swiss.
Yeah, it's more
kind of like baby Harry Kim. You have a thing.
Oh yeah.
What I'm gathering. You should have baby Swiss while holding baby Kim. That doll is so scary.
Oh my gosh. You didn't show that to me before, Carly.
He was heading off to the side.
How dare you? How dare you not show me the crazy Star Trek baby?
Yeah, it is a little insane, right, Heather?
Garrett seen that?
Sorry, what, Aaron?
It is a little crazy, right? A little Chucky.
Yeah.
Little Harry Kim Chucky doll.
He's his butt like a Cabbage Patch Kid doll.
I think it's more like Tom Harris looking than Harry Kim. You know.
I think he needs a stroller.
Here's the weird thing about this doll.
He needs a stroller. No, he needs one of those slings that you wear.
Baby bajorn.
Yeah, not even a backpack, a sling. You know?
Yeah.
One of those new age slings.
Head poking out.
That would be so awesome.
That's what I want to see you cosplay, Harry Kim's mom.
No, cosplay Janeway carrying baby Harry Kim.
Oh.
And then have Garrett sign his butt.
That image basically is an analogy for the whole 7 years, isn't it? That's the best.
That's messed up. That's messed up, man.
Hey, Carly, that's an inexpensive cosplay that I want to see this Vegas. You as Janeway with a sling with Harry Kim in the sling.
Yeah, put that together in less than 3 weeks.
And then you have a pip going, not yet, Harry, not yet.
You gotta earn it. You gotta earn this.
You're on.
You gotta earn it.
You're on. I'll find a way to do this.
Yeah,
So did we
just
get,
walk by Garrett's booth all weekend.
Your hair is close enough in color. All you got to do is just kind of put it up in that weird bun thing. She has going on, you know?
Oh, that's so easy to do.
Yeah, and then we
got you covered, Carly. We got you.
How did this turn back into Star Trek talk? I was gone for like 5 seconds.
Star Trek is life.
Thank
I was
you,
gone
Ryan.
for 5 seconds. Carly, what's
We
how
went
I
from
roll?
cheese.
That's how I roll, Ryan.
We started
Carly?
at cheese and we ended up at Baby Harry.
Carly, did we get your favorite cheese?
Because
last time it was pizza to Star Trek.
Because
so, I mean, it's
What about Sierra's?
Star Trek.
see, Sierra said baby Swiss, and I said I want to see you have.
Oh, that's right. What about you, Cirroc? What's your
Oh God. Okay. For my eggs, I like cheese slices, the yellow slices of cheese. You know, the regular.
What is that, American? Is it
Like
cheddar?
the ones individually packaged.
Yeah. For my eggs,
String
when I make
cheese?
cheese, when I make cheese eggs, I use the individually wrapped cheese slices.
Why don't you
Now-
just call it eggs with cheese?
Well, it's cheese eggs.
Okay.
It's specific.
And then when I want to eat just cheese by itself, Trader Joe's, shout out to Trader Joe's again.
Okay.
They have their own brand of cheddar, which is called Unexpected Cheddar, and it's unexpectedly the best cheddar cheese I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
And I get it all the time.
Kind of like
Trader
your ice mochas, right? Your ice blendeds.
Like my ice blendeds and like my Trader Joe's organic chocolate chip fudge ice cream. Yeah.
I think you got a couple of habits we got to work on, my friend.
I'm a foodie. I'm a big time foodie.
He's trying to get sponsored by Trader Joe's.
I think so. I think you're
I
right.
like Trader Joe's.
I like Trader Joe's
do
too. I'm
like-
with you. We should do a little video of you and I shopping at Trader Joe's together.
Cool. You can get recognized.
It'd be even better if you could go as, Jake and Nog. That would be even better.
Yeah.
So, no enough
Yes,
Jake can go
yes.
shop at Trader Joe's.
And he
Like
wants
at
to
the end
get
of,
cheddar,
Ted
and I
2.
say no.
No, I'd get mochi. I go buy mochi.
Aaron?
Mochi.
I love mochi.
Aaron, what's your favorite cheese? We already heard your mochi talk. What's your favorite cheese?
Well, don't hate on my mochi. Don't hate on my mochi. I like sharp cheddar
Okay.
because
There
it's
you
always
go.
better.
That's
Bad
all
joke.
right.
All back. I called it all back. I just called it back.
All right.
And it looks like, something a Ferengi would eat. It's why we eat so much. You don't know this. That's why we're orange, because we eat so much orange cheddar.
You must have a better, digestive system than humans by far.
I don't know. I feel like a Ferengi would eat the stinkiest cheese we have.
Why? Why would you say that about me?
I just feel that way.
Why would I
just
eat the stinkiest cheese?
Because Ferengis are so, I don't know. They're just
Stinky.
Because they like grubs.
Wow, we're so clean. You have no idea how clean we are.
they're shady. So, not
Shady
you.
is not the same as stinky. Just because somebody is shady doesn't mean they're stinky.
But I just feel like it's the worst cheese that nobody else would eat. That's what I feel like.
Wow. Do you think we would have all these Dobble girls hanging out with us if we were so stinky?
Yeah.
They get paid.
Yeah, money, just money. Mickey's just saying money only.
Hey,
That's
everybody
the
needs
key
a
right
job.
But what's the
Everybody
double
needs
girls
a
are not
job.
getting paid?
If it pays the bills, we'll work with those stinky Ferengi.
Did you
heard
see that?
Heather.
There's that episode where the double girl goes to Captain Sisko and he's like,
How are
she's
we
like,
talking about Star Trek again? What the hell just happened?
Wait, I didn't hear what Heather said. Say that again, Heather.
So there's the episode of season 1 where the double girl goes to Captain Sisko and she's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. Quark
touching
wants me to be a
and he's
prostitute.
like, yeah. So I'm like, I know, she wanted the cheddar. So
I don't think she wanted the cheddar, actually. I think she wanted the money without having to take the cheddar.
Nothing else.
Yeah. And let's be honest, Jake at that time was looking at Nog as a ladies' man, so there was no way that I was stinky. He didn't ever come back and go, Dad, he's odd. He stinks. He's stinky.
No, I can
Never says
attest that you were never stinky.
Yeah. See?
Okay, I concede you win.
All right.
Randy's and cheddar.
We actually smell like lavender with a
And blueberries.
yes, a little bit of blueberry, a hint of blueberry. Sometimes
More like orange peel and lemons.
Zesty.
Lavender and lemon. See that? Yeah.
Mickey's
Yeah.
like, I have nothing to offer in this really bad conversation.
I'm just wondering how much earwax they probably can, end up like larger Q-tips.
Well, I did notice in watching
Yeah.
what we've watched 10 episodes. Ferengi basically grab each other by the ears all the time, but you don't see, Sisko grabbing O'Brien by the balls when he's mad at him.
Well, because it's off camera. You can't see him reaching down there.
That's why all the shots are from the waist up.
If you Q-tip your ear enough and by yourself, would it be considered self-abuse?
Yeah, basically, whenever you see Quark do that all the time. He goes like this, and I'm like, "Stop touching yourself in front of me, man. Have some class." And in the family, we grab
Get
each
a
other's
room.
balls all the time. Apparently, he's grabbing my ear, pulling me into class. He grabs his brother's ear. It's very strange. Ferengi home life is very, very close.
Yeah, I know some families that do some strange things. So
Yeah, but everybody loves a Ferengi. Something about
Not everybody.
everybody but you. Oh. Can't wait for the
wow.
next episode.
So cheese.
And apparently as we get older, we get a lot of hair in that ear, as you can tell.
Nagus, yeah.
Well, they droop a lot too. So it seems
Yeah, they
about
droop
on par.
way. But he wants, all the holosuite programs, all 5 of them. He's ready and raring to go. So apparently we don't stop kicking.
Well, it's not like they invented Viagra.
We are Viagra.
I'm already around.
It's coursing through our veins until we're 6 feet under. By the way, Ryan, in the Nagus, they did something that I thought was interesting. Krax is selling his dad's body stuff, right? But then later goes, "Oh, but you're alive." Well, then why was it all that was a hole that we didn't talk about?
I didn't get that either. It's
Yeah.
just another Ferengi scam, something that we've
that's
got
all
a
we
lot
do.
used
Yeah.
to.
That's a more appropriate stereotype.
What was that, Mickey?
That's a more appropriate stereotype, the scamming.
Yeah.
Not so much the
I
smelling.
mean, nah, you guys look at it all wrong. It's just trying to get an advantage, which everybody does. So you call it scamming, I call it winning.
You mean as I shamelessly advertise?
Nice.
No, not at all. That was Cirroc didn't see that though. It was another Enterprise crochet and more octopi.
This is Pike.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an octopike?
Oh, by the way, you need to do a Deep Space Nine octopus because it looks like one in the background. Harry Kim is staring at me right now. Baby Harry's staring at me.
Staring.
It's so creepy. Just
Well,
staring
if
at me.
you send me ideas,
and Tuvok is
then I
looking
can
down
crochet them.
reproachfully at him.
What, Heather?
I said Tuvok is looking down reproachfully at him.
Where's Tuvok back there?
Right behind Harry Kim.
Right there.
Oh, there he is.
He ain't found. Sorry.
He's still pissed that he wasn't made first in the first episode.
They have they commiserate on their lacks of promotion.
It's like
Well,
the
it's a running
dirty
joke,
of,
right?
of Voyager. He can't catch a break.
Who?
Unless you're Tom.
Kim.
you
Ensign
can
Kim is
bounce
like the
down
Geordie
and
of, to me, Ensign Kim feels like the Geordie of Voyager. He just can't catch a break.
True.
He just
Oh,
can't.
cry me a river. He's got to stop playing with that clarinet so much and get into war. Something happened.
Hey,
There's no
Tuvok
excuses
had a
for Harry
point.
Kim.
I mean, geez, everyone plays an instrument.
Yeah,
No,
Picard
didn't.
had his flute.
No,
He
he
wasn't.
didn't play an instrument. You
Piccolo
know
or
why?
something.
He didn't mess with those silly things. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he had to do.
Like it might as well have been a recorder.
Hey, recording was my first instrument.
It was everybody's first instrument.
Recorder?
Mine was the didgeridoo.
What?
What?
Have one.
I want to hear
Have
it.
one. You want to play
A
it?
didgeridoo. What is a
I
didgeridoo?
think I even said it correctly.
Didgeridoo. Wait, yeah, didgeridoo.
It's, how do you say it?
Didgeridoo.
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 I like the way I said it. It's a different instrument. It's a little bit different.
It's a lot bigger.
A couple more.
It's bigger.
parts to it.
Didgeridoos and didgeridon'ts of picking a fake instrument.
Didgeridoo. Say that. I play the
Didgeridoo.
I can play didgeridoo and a harmonica and some cymbals all at the same time. And I'll be at a subway in New York City.
It just needs that drum that beats with your footsteps. What is
And
it?
the
Exactly.
cymbals and the
The bass
Cymbals
drum.
between my knees,
Aaron, you play the harmonica, right?
like a madman. I can do the DS9 song on a harmonica. No, I can't.
No, that's not a true statement.
I was going to call you out.
That was a lie we would have made you follow up on.
I want to see somebody come on our show and do that. Play the DS9 theme song on a harmonica, and then
Oh, if only Billy Joel was a Star Trek fan.
If only. Or a banjo. Let's get Steve Martin on here to do the DS9 theme on a banjo.
That would be awesome.
Heather says no banjos.
That would be epic.
It would be. Right? It's like, how can I get out of this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, friends, this has been a magnificent talk about you. But we do have to go. Thank you all for joining us. By the way, Port Salute. Check out that cheese. Port Salute. The French way it's pronounced is Port Salut. It's my favorite.
Bastille
cheese, as
Day.
Cirroc well knows. Port Salute,
Bastille Day.
the best. Port Salute. Anyway, thank you so much, Carly, Sierra, Mickey, Heather, for your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton, for Russ Hasledge of Odyssey Radio, for myself, Ryan T. Husk. Thank you all so much for joining us. That was the free-for-all.
That's what you want to call it.
Nice.
That was a free for all.